Firing back, Chinese officials rebuke Australia's calls for an inquiry into the coronavirus outbreak. Our relationship with a major trading partner under strain. Also tonight, the leader of a country hit hard by the coronavirus willing to accept policy failures in response to the pandemic. It's a boy. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and partner Kerry Simons announced the birth of their son. And what song is the biggest hit at this housing block in Switzerland?
This is SBS World News with Catalina Florez.
Good evening. As many countries around the world see positive signs in their coronavirus trajectory, there have been reminders that the pandemic is far from over. In the past 24 hours, the United States hit a new milestone, the first country to record 1 million coronavirus cases since the outbreak began. But there continues to be fears in other parts of the world. Brazil is quickly becoming a hotspot, and refugee camps housing some of the world's most vulnerable also at risk. Globally, there are over 3 million cases, the US making up nearly 1/3 of the total global figure. 90 people have died in Australia. Currently, there are less than 1,100 active cases in Australia. But amid health concerns over the virus, a political fallout is gaining pace at home. There's been an escalation in tensions with our largest trading partner as China's ambassador continued a war of words with the Australian government. Firing back, Chinese officials have once again rebuffed the Morrison government's calls for an inquiry into the origin of COVID-19.
Australia's health minister sidelined from his own media event.
It's a real delight for me to attend this press conference.
After China's Consul General unexpectedly shared the stage with mining magnate Andrew Forrest.
The Chinese government has released information related to the COVID-19 in an open, transparent and responsible manner.
Announcing 10 million Chinese-made COVID-19 test kits are on their way to Australia.
The virus knows no ideology, border or race. We're all in this together.
Yet another awkward moment.
Thank you very much.
Question for the Consul General.
We'll do that.
Can we ask a quick question? Just why can't we ask the question?
As Beijing rages over Canberra's calls for a global COVID-19 inquiry. This from the editor of the state-backed Global Times. Somehow Australia is jumping up and down again and again. In my opinion, it is like chewing gum stuck to the bottom of China's shoe. Sometimes you just have to find a rock and rub it off, as Australia is blamed for spearheading an all-out crusade to stab China in the back after riding on the coattails of its monumental development.
Trying to start the so-called independent inquiry. This is not simply an investigation, but almost like a kangaroo court.
Accusing you and your government of panda bashing. Is this a fight you need right now?
Well, Australia will continue to, of course, pursue what is a very reasonable and sensible course of action. It's not a remarkable position. It's a fairly common sense position, and one that we don't result from.
They don't see these as ordinary comments. They're angry about these comments.
Well, that's good for them. Australia will do what's in our interest and in the global interest.
I regard it as completely unremarkable, the idea that there should be an investigation into this.
China's embassy publishing details of private diplomatic phone calls in response to what it calls petty tricks.
Well, they're ludicrous claims. We won't bow to economic coercion.
To be best of friends
even to be good friends, you've got to be honest with each other.
As the Prime Minister sent Beijing a message of his own.
I mean, the thing about our relationship with China is it's a mutually beneficial one. It's a comprehensive strategic partnership, and we will continue to pursue that partnership, respecting China's sovereignty and their independence, and its success will continue to depend on that being returned.
Some diplomats believe today's unexpected joint press conference could actually be a positive, an olive branch to try and salvage a bilateral relationship at breaking point.
It's been best described, I think, as wolf warrior diplomacy. Xi Jinping has told them to demonstrate fighting spirit, and so they're performing for him, and we're seeing the results.
Brett Mason, SBS World News.
There's a glimmer of hope for Australians, with the Prime Minister suggesting a return to something like normal life is not far away. Scott Morrison has flagged an easing in coronavirus restrictions, saying Australia is on the road back to economic recovery.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison entering stage right to forecast the long-awaited easing of some COVID-19 restrictions, and with a plea to Australians to download the COVID Safe app.
This is the ticket to ensuring that we can have eased restrictions and Australians can go back to the lifestyle and the many things that they previously were able to do, and this is important.
Nearly 3 million people have downloaded the app already, but the PM wants more.
I would liken it to the fact that if you want to go outside when the sun's shining, you've got to put sunscreen on. This is the same thing.
New South Wales, Western Australia and Queensland have already decided they will lift some restrictions this weekend, but Victoria is standing firm, refusing to consider the prospect until at least May 11. Social isolation has taken its toll on the country's mental health. 1 million mental health consultations have taken place via telehealth since mid-March.
And what we're seeing with respect to those calls is an increase in the distress levels, an increase in the anxiety levels, in the complexity of what people are feeling.
But even with a gradual easing of restrictions, some things won't look the same for a long time yet.
I can't see international travel occurring anytime soon. Can't see that. The risks there are obvious. The only exception to that, as I've flagged, is potentially with New Zealand, and we've had some good discussions about that. But outside of that, that's unlikely.
The government says tracking and testing are the keys to a successful reopening. And thanks to billionaire philanthropist Andrew Twiggy Forrest, Australia now has access to 10 million additional tests, which will be distributed to the states.
This ball is now in your court. Each of you, I think, have the ability now to see the virus, to close it down and not your economy, to isolate the virus and not any longer isolate your population.
For families of residents of Newmarch House, their attention is firmly focused right here. They say communication just hasn't been good enough, and so every afternoon they gather here to try and find out exactly what's going on with their loved ones. The Anglicare-run care home in Sydney's West confirmed another resident has died there, taking the total to 12 deaths since Easter Sunday. Anglicare CEO Grant Millard says the group has worked hard to improve the experience for residents and their families.
If you like, the clinical needs, the feeding, clothing, cleaning, rigorous control of processes with PPE, now that that's in place, some of the other issues, which are still vitally important, particularly residents' mental health state, connecting with the families, that is now actually happening, and that's our number one priority.
Today, some residents were allowed to see their family members, albeit through windows.
It was just amazing to see her. I'm just trying not to cry. I'm going to probably cry. It was so good to see her, and she really was quite okay today.
Some residents are critical of Anglicare for a lack of urgency, saying even window-to-window visits are too little, too late.
It's just been frustrating that there's solutions there, but it's taken so long and these people just don't have that time.
34 residents and 22 staff of Newmarch House have tested positive to COVID-19. Matt Cannellan, SBS World News.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez says he'll take responsibility for policy failures in the handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Mr Sánchez addressed Parliament to reveal a 4-phase plan to relax restrictions over the next few weeks, conceding he'll be personally accountable for mistakes made by the Spanish government.
Not only the Spanish government, no government in the world, no European government, nor any regional government can boast of having been right on everything. We've been on target on some issues and we have errors in others. And I can guarantee, Your Honour, that I take responsibility personally for the mistakes of the Spanish government.
Each region will have measures relaxed at a different pace, starting from the 4th of May. Well, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is tonight beaming with joy after his partner gave birth to their first child together. Let's go straight to Europe correspondent Ben Lewis for the latest. And Ben, what more can you tell us?
Well, Catalina, good evening. We don't know the baby boy's name yet, but we are told by Downing Street that both he and mum Carrie Simmons are doing well. What an extraordinary month it has been for Boris Johnson. Just a few weeks ago, he was in intensive care with COVID-19. He only came back to work in Downing Street at the start of the week, and now he is a father once again. He was due to take part in Prime Minister's questions today. Understandably, he's not there. Instead, his Foreign Secretary has been filling in, and he offered congratulations on behalf of the country.
The PM and his fiancée Carrie Simmons have announced the birth of a healthy baby boy this morning. Both mother and baby are doing well, and I'm sure the whole house will want to join with me in sending congratulations and our very best wishes to them.
Warm wishes for the couple have been coming in from across the UK and around the world, including a message from Scott Morrison in Australia. It reads, "Congratulations, Boris Johnson and Carrie, on the birth of your baby boy. Nothing better than being a dad, an absolute blessing, and even more so after the tough time you've had recently. Sending you and Carrie our best wishes from Australia." This is a little bit of positive news in what is an incredibly difficult time for the United Kingdom. The official hospital death toll here stands at around 21,000, but according to some estimates, the true death toll, including deaths in the community and care homes, could be as high as 46,000. Catalina, it's understood that Boris Johnson won't be taking paternity leave right now. He will do that later in the year. His focus will, to some extent, have to be on the crisis at hand.
Extraordinary month indeed. Ben Lewis reporting live there from London. Thank you very much. Well, the Queen has reached out to New Zealand leader as the country emerges from its strict lockdown. Jacinda Ardern revealed she spoke to the Queen, who wanted to touch base and see how New Zealand is coping with the pandemic.
While it's not general practice to comment on to any detailed degree on the conversation, what I came away with was a very genuine and strong sense that Her Majesty is really interested in how we're doing. And was heartened to hear that we're doing okay.
New Zealand reported only 2 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 today. Coming up, under what conditions will the deferred Tokyo Olympic Games take place? The IOC at odds with Japanese health officials.
How are you all coping? It's a little crazy. Working from home and homeschooling.
It is challenging to do both.
How Aussies are making it work.
We will become better and better at this.
500,000 people visit Machu Picchu every year. Not anymore. The coronavirus lockout is crippling communities who depend on tourism.
I am worried about how this will end.
Now streaming on SBS On Demand. When you see a home loan rate this good, you might start to feel just a little more on top of things. Whether you're thinking about refinancing or buying, we're here to help and ready to talk. Search ANZ Home Loans.
How safe are those things? Shame.
At Toyota, we're all about your safety. That's why our dealerships and service centres are staying open. older feeling. Toyota.
Aaron is a business broker who works from home. Because he's mostly at home day and night, he could pay less on his home and contents insurance. Yui, it's home and contents insurance for individuals like Aaron. Yui, you insured.
You don't give in. You don't give up. You push on when most would have pushed off. You lend a hand, whether a hand was asked for or not. It's called Aussie Spirit for good reason, because it takes spirit to get through times like these. Lucky you've got it in spades. It's what inspires us to be by your side to help. Together we'll get through this. We always do. Search Toyota, here to help.
Så illa som jag tror att det är. Det finns en läcka. Ja. Fan. Jag vet.
Försök fatta allvaret i det här. Folk dör inte. Du har gått över gränsen. Vi har gått över gränsen. Vi är på fel sida. Vi ska inte vara där.
Men klick tillbaka då.
States has reached another horrific milestone. The COVID-19 crisis now officially killing more of its citizens than the Vietnam War. More than 58,300 Americans have died, and the US accounts for around a third of global infections.
A place for retired soldiers, now home to 68 casualties of America's COVID-19 war. The deadliest known outbreak at a long-term care facility in the US. The state's top prosecutor is deciding on legal action.
It's heartbreaking, heartbreaking. We, in my field of nursing, we're used to death, but not in this magnitude. Not so many at the same time, not alone, without their families.
In Brooklyn, 30-year-old teacher Rona Zoe died in hospital after being turned away twice from having a COVID test. While on the streets of Manhattan, people wait in queues for 2 hours to be tested. But hospitalisations and the death rate in New York have dropped to a month low after a devastating peak.
Every day, I think maybe today is the day the nightmare will be over, but it's not.
Overhead, an Air Force salute to health workers on the front lines. It comes as experts warn of the mental health fallout after a top ER doctor in New York took her own life. She had recently returned to work after recovering from coronavirus. Fresh supplies of medical and protective equipment have now arrived in Maryland from Turkey. But as a food shortage looms, the President has signed an executive order to keep meat packing plants open, despite thousands of workers being infected. More than 5.7 million Americans have now been tested.
We are way ahead on testing. We are the best in the world on testing. We've tested much more than anybody else, ×2.
In a room of small business owners, the President talking up plans to get the economy moving again.
Americans are looking forward to the safe and rapid reopening of our country.
His top diseases expert says thousands more people are projected to die.
If we have the capability of identifying, isolating and contact tracing, then the numbers will stay low. It may be 80,000, whatever, 70,000, like the model says.
In Minnesota, the Vice President touring a medical clinic, appearing to be the only one not adhering to the hospital's mandatory mask policy. The President also met with Florida's Republican governor, discussing potentially blocking some Latin American countries seen as coronavirus hotspots. Virginia Langeberg, SBS World News.
While further south in Latin America, there's growing concerns Brazil is becoming the next global hotspot of the virus. In the face of rapidly rising infection rates and number of deaths, President Jair Bolsonaro remains hesitant to implement strong measures to contain the spread.
Just days ago, this freshly constructed common grave site was empty. Now, the grim site outside Manaus, Brazil's worst affected city, is filling up fast. The country's president has previously described the coronavirus as a little flu. unwilling to enforce widespread restrictive measures due to economic fears. Despite over 73,000 confirmed infections and 5,000 deaths, Jair Bolsonaro remains dismissive.
I'm sorry, what do you want me to do? I don't do miracles.
Some of the poorest in Rio de Janeiro queue for hours outside public banks, desperate for emergency aid promised by the federal government, despite the health risks.
We don't even fear the coronavirus that kills, but hunger is very cruel.
Over the border in Peru, total cases have more than doubled in the past 9 days, surpassing 30,000, prompting the collapse of medical facilities and protests from beleaguered medical workers worried for their safety. Advocates also say not enough testing is happening in the country's overcrowded prisons, hit hard by the virus. 9 inmates were killed in a riot that was prompted by the virus deaths of several fellow inmates. And in the Chilean capital of Santiago, there are fears of a looming humanitarian crisis, as Bolivian migrants wait in clusters, stranded due to border restrictions in their own country. Joel Spreadborough, SBS World News.
Clashes are continuing on Lebanese streets tonight as protests ramp up over the government's handling of the economy. It follows clashes yesterday, triggered in part by a crash in the local currency and a surge in food prices. Protesters blame political mismanagement and corruption and set fire to banks for preventing people from accessing their savings. At least one demonstrator was killed in the riots. The country has been in deep financial crisis since October, which has only been made worse by coronavirus shutdowns. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says the Tokyo Olympics should not take place next year unless the coronavirus pandemic is contained. The International Olympic Committee and the Japanese government last month postponed the event until July 2021. But Abe's comments are at odds with IOC member John Coates. He believes the Games can go ahead without the development of a vaccine. Coates says the IOC is being guided by the World Health Organization.
It just reinforced our confidence that the measures being taken by the relevant authorities are properly addressing the situation.
Tokyo Games officials have confirmed the Olympics will be scrapped if they do not take place in 2021. There are mounting concerns tonight about the spread of COVID-19 in Bangladeshi refugee camps, where hundreds of thousands of people reside in close quarters. To prevent an outbreak, new physical distancing and hygiene measures have been put in place.
Konapara refugee camp on the Bangladesh-Myanmar border, home to 620 displaced families, mostly Rohingyas from Rakhine State. It's a precarious existence at the best of times. A coronavirus outbreak here would be catastrophic. These pictures from the Red Cross show their aid workers enforcing strict preventative measures. A new strategy for food distribution is now underway.
We're distributing to 600 people at once one day. Now we have 3 days of distribution.
So far, no cases of COVID-19 have been reported inside the camp. With poor living conditions and limited health infrastructure across Bangladesh, aid workers are hoping to keep it that way, carrying out special hand-washing lessons. And twice a week, a mobile health clinic visits to check for COVID-19 symptoms, as well as provide basic health care. And Wara Begum knows the clinic well.
My baby has a cough. He's had a cold and been coughing all night. Whenever we are ill, we come here.
Doctors say working within the context of COVID-19 presents special challenges.
The whole world is facing a shortage of PPE. We are trying to get it as well.
At Cox's Bazar, one of the largest and most densely populated refugee camps in the world, fears of an outbreak is growing. It too has no cases, but the first infection in the Cox's Bazar district was detected in March. Social distancing here near impossible. Abby O'Brien, SBS World News.
Actor Irfan Khan, known for his acclaimed Hollywood and Bollywood roles, has died aged 53. The award winner fought a long battle with cancer and was recently admitted to hospital. Khan appeared in blockbusters including Slumdog Millionaire, Life of Pi, Jurassic World, The Amazing Spider-Man and Inferno. He's survived by his wife and 2 children. Coming up, the weather, and if you were stuck in lockdown, where would you be? These 2 friends may be living out many people's wishes.
Asian Epics continues with The Villainess, tomorrow 9:30 on SBS World Movies and On Demand.
Give us a little more.
Oh yeah, here we go. Let's do this.
Righteous.
The Orville, weeknight 6:40 on SBS Viceland or stream all seasons on demand.
To keep us all safe and to help our health workers, it's vital to know quickly if you've come in contact with someone who has tested positive for coronavirus. It's why we've introduced the COVID Safe app. With your privacy protected by law, COVID Safe keeps a secure note of other users you've been near if you have to go out. So, if they test positive for coronavirus, you'll be notified. It'll help us stop the spread sooner so we can get back to the things we love. Download COVID Safe today. Authorised by the Chief Medical Officer, Canberra.
Pay less every day this Mother's Day at The Good Guys. This DeLonghi coffee machine $7.99. This KitchenAid stand mixer $3.99. This air fryer only $4.79. This multi-cooker only $1.79. Loads more online in our catalogue only at The Good Guys.
As Australia moves to the NBN, now is the time to join an award-winning provider with service and performance that's out of this world. Turn to TPG. Get unlimited data with phone line for $59.99 a month. With more than 1.8 million broadband customers, our group is the 2nd largest internet provider in Australia, connecting you to the internet.
tpg.com.au.
With Australian tuned suspension, the Hyundai Tucson is made for it. Even if you're not.
Do you think you are saving people you wouldn't have saved 10 years ago?
Without doubt.
Do you think you can keep up?
Wow.
Michael Mosley, Frontline Medicine, continues Monday 8:30 on SBS and On Demand.
How are you all coping?
It's a little crazy.
Working from home and homeschooling.
It is challenging to do both.
How Aussies are making it work.
We will become better and better at this.
500,000 people visit Machu Picchu every year. Not anymore. The coronavirus lockout is crippling communities who depend on tourism.
I am worried about how this will end.
Now streaming on SBS On Demand.
There's a world of stories available for free at SBS On Demand. Download the app or visit the website today. SBS On Demand, a world of difference.
To the weather now. In the major centres, possible storms are expected in Brisbane and Sydney. Rain is easing in Hobart and Canberra. Showers are developing in Adelaide and Melbourne. Partly cloudy in Darwin and sunny in Perth. Looking further afield, it's fine in Christchurch and overcast in Auckland and Wellington. Rainy days ahead in Nadi. In Southeast Asia, Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur are bracing for thunderstorms. Light rain for Jakarta. Further north, cloud covers Shanghai, Hong Kong and Seoul. Fine in Beijing. Heading west, overcast conditions for Baghdad and Beirut. Drizzle in Delhi. To Europe, thunder about in Istanbul and hail in Paris, cloudy skies for Rome. In Africa, fine days ahead for Algiers and Casablanca, fog in Johannesburg. In South America, heavy rain expected in Lima and Caracas, thunder in Panama City. And for North America, showers for New York, Chicago and Vancouver and foggy in LA. Well, rather than be at home, if you could choose one place to be stuck in lockdown, where would it be? Well, for British friends Steve Pond and Dom Townsend, they found themselves stuck in a pub and, not surprisingly, they're loving it. The assistant manager and bartender both live in rooms above the venue. Although there are no customers due to lockdown measures, they admit they're making the most of it.
Beer's obviously the high, you know, we've got our golf, we've got our PlayStation. So we can't complain really.
We've got a roof, we've got a garden, we've got all of this space, you know, we've got fresh beer on tap. We're about as lucky as it gets.
Lucky indeed. Despite their current predicament, they say they're looking forward to a bar full of customers and getting back to work. And Swiss residents, also in lockdown, have taken to their balconies to bring a little fun and colour to a rainy day. Since measures were imposed over a month ago in Switzerland, these residents meet daily on their balconies to lift spirits by singing and dancing. That's the world this Wednesday. Thanks for your company. From the team, good night.